Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters. I'm your host, Mitch. Glad to have you here. Here at the Commander's Quarters, we're all about Commander on a budget. Today's episode is going to be Commander Quick Take. On episodes like these, I give you my initial take on a newly spoiled commander from an upcoming set. I'm going to talk about a potential direction to take that commander and possible cards to use for that build. I'll also go over some possible upgrades and similar commanders to this one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. And while you're at it, subscribe and review our podcast as well. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So, it finally happened. We finally have a mono-white commander with card advantage with Mangara the Diplomat. This card was spoiled earlier today, and I am really excited for it. And I'm also kind of dreading when I've got an episode coming out in the near future that I already recorded where I kind of bash Wizards for, never giving mono-white kind of any card advantage or draw or whatnot. But, yeah, I'll just make a comment in that video section. It'll be fine, right? No one's gonna, say, hey, they have Mangara now, and yeah. Anyways, Mangara the Diplomat is a 2/4 human cleric with lifelink that costs 3 and a white. He has, whenever an opponent attacks with creatures, if 2 or more of those creatures are attacking you and or planeswalkers you control, draw a card. And whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, draw a card. So Mangara gives you multiple ways to draw cards, and yes, in mono white, which is fantastic. I think that the first way is it's going to be more of a deterrent than actually a draw engine. So essentially, players will either decide to attack you with one creature or just not attack you at all because they aren't going to want to give you extra card advantage, especially with that second part where whenever they cast their second spell each turn, you draw a card. There are a ton of decks out there that are going to be casting multiple spells in a turn, so one turn around the table, this can draw you 2 or 3 cards even. So you're going to be drawing a ton of cards throughout the game with this. Again, it's a good deterrent for people not to attack you. I think this card can be great in the 99, but of course can be a good commander as well, and might just be the #1 mono-white commander in the near future. We will see. I mean, it can unseat Shrim and Teshar, the only other 2 mono-white commanders that actually provide any kind of card advantage. This one is actually kind of a broader version of card advantage, though. It can really apply to kind of any situation, any deck. It's going to provide card advantage, versus the other 2 are very specific and need to do very specific things to actually generate card advantage. Again, Shrim is what vehicles, auras, and equipment, and Teshar is casting historic spells to get things back out of your graveyard. But yeah, again, Mangara, definitely a broader kind of card advantage. The deck that you'd probably want to build around it, I think you can go in a couple of different ways. Probably a control build, maybe potentially if your playgroup allows it, a stacks-ish build, potentially. Again, I'm not an expert on those kind of things, but I've been hearing some people throw that around. But then also kind of a group hug, or as I like to call it, actually a political control build. Group hug, in my definition, group hug has no win con, essentially doesn't want to win. A political control build wants to kind of help players take each other out and eventually win from there and try to kind of manipulate the board, manipulate others into kind of doing what you want them to do. And I think Mangara can be great at that. First off, you're going to want to protect Mangara because Mangara is definitely crucial to your plan. Swiftfoot Boots, of course, is a great way to do that. An equipment that costs 2 gives Hexproof and Haste, equip 1. So, in case, Mangara gets, the board wipe happens and Mangara dies, then you can get him back out and then re-equip. Shielded by Faith is a great way to save Mangara from those board wipes. It's an aura that costs 1 white. It says Enchanted Creature is indestructible, and you can move it to another creature when it comes into play, but you're probably not going to do that. But yeah, again, protecting Mangara is kind of first and foremost because that is your draw engine for this deck. And again, mono white really doesn't have too many other ways to draw cards, so you're going to be really dependent on your commander for this kind of a deck. When it comes to kind of that group hug kind of side of things, again, I like to call it political control. You want to find ways to encourage others to basically do what you want them to do. So Helm of Awakening can be a great card for this kind of a deck. It's an artifact that costs 2 and basically makes all spells cost 1 less. This helps you, but it also helps your opponents, which sometimes, obviously for most decks that wouldn't be a good thing. But for this deck, actually want to encourage players to play multiple spells in one turn because, again, you're going to be drawing a card every single time they do so. So this can help provide you not only, save you mana throughout the game, but it can also kind of be a card draw enabler as well. Another kind of card that can really help you out, and that's kind of, a more political tool. Pendant of Prosperity. Artifact for 3. It enters the battlefield under the control of an opponent of your choice. You can pay 2 and tap it, they are going to pay 2 and tap it to draw a card, then put a land card from their hand onto the battlefield, and then Pendant of Prosperity's owner, us, draws a card, and then we can play a land from our hand onto the battlefield, or put a land from our hand onto the battlefield. So, essentially, this kind of is a political tool that we can give to someone to help them out, but also really help us out, because again, if we're going to be drawing a lot of cards, we're going to have extra lands in our hand that we want to get in play and help us ramp. Again, mono white is very weak when it comes to ramp, but this can really help, and we're kind of not taxing another player, but basically they're helping us do our dirty work for us by actually providing us more card advantage, providing us more ramp by activating this for us, essentially. Alliance at Arms is a card that could really come in handy with this. It's a sorcery that costs a white. It says join forces. Starting with you, each player may pay any amount of mana. Each player puts X1/1 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is the total amount of mana paid this way. So this essentially just can be, hey, everyone gets a ton of soldiers. And again, players probably, again, if they're trying to decide who to attack, we might not be the best option, again, because we are getting that extra card advantage anytime we're attacked with, 2 or more creatures. So giving everyone creatures can be a good way to kind of fill the board with creatures and kind of maybe find some other ways to incentivize attacks and attacking other players. A Crowan Horse is another card that can kind of help with this, help get creatures out. It's a 0/4 horse with Defender that costs 4. When it enters the battlefield, an opponent gains control of it, and at the beginning of our upkeep, each opponent creates a 1/1 white soldier creature token. So again, we give this to one of our opponents, then each of their opponents, which includes us, gets a 1/1 soldier. So if this sticks around, it can be another way to generate a lot of tokens, kind of fill the board, and again, provide some armies, and we can incentivize them to attack each other with those creatures, essentially. One way to, again, kind of incentivize attacks elsewhere is going to be Ghostly Prison, or kind of any other kind of Ghostly Prison effects. It's an enchantment for 2 and a white, and it says creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 for each creature they control that's attacking you. So again, especially if we're giving them token armies and they're going to be having to pay 2 for each of those creatures, they're not going to be heavily incentivized to attack us, to just let us draw a card, essentially, when they're having to pay mana and do all the things for it. But basically, again, there's plenty of kind of Ghostly Prison effects in white that kind of encourage attacks elsewhere. Obviously, you can encourage attacks toward yourself, and that is beneficial in certain circumstances, but it's also beneficial in certain ways to, say, let's attack elsewhere. I don't really need to draw that card. Go swing somewhere else. Something like Angel's Trumpet is a fantastic card. I've actually used it in a couple decks, I believe. It's an artifact that costs 3. It says all creatures have vigilance. At the end of each player's turn, tap all untapped creatures they control that did not attack this turn. Angel's Trumpet deals 1 damage to that player for each creature tapped this way. So basically this says, hey, you can either choose to attack and swing away, or if you don't, your creatures are going to get tapped anyways. I mean, I guess they don't tap if they're attacking. Your creatures are going to get tapped so they can't block, and then you get pinged for each of those creatures. So basically, again, we're trying to fill the board with creatures if we can, or help utilize creatures that are already on the board and force attacks to happen. Again, forcing attacks elsewhere, not necessarily at us, or at least benefiting if they are coming at us. Gideon Jura is another way to kind of force attacks. This one does force them at us, though. Gideon Jura is a planeswalker that has 6 loyalty, costs 3 white. Its +2, which is the main one that we care about, is during target opponent's next turn, creatures that player controls attack Gideon Jura if able. So again, we're forcing attacks. Maybe there's someone who doesn't have an optimal attack against us, and we can, block effectively. We can draw a card. Or maybe we've got something else on the battlefield like Farsight Mask, which is an artifact that costs 5, and it says whenever a source an opponent controls deals damage to you, if Farsight Mask is untapped, you may draw a card. So this is kind of a stacking effect kind of on our commander already. On top of Mangar, we have basically now 2 ways to draw cards whenever, someone swings at us. We can, draw a card off of the 2 creatures attacking us, and then also draw a card whenever we're hit with creatures too, or draw multiple cards. So again, kind of incentivizing attacks and kind of controlling how attacks happen is kind of a good direction for this deck, I believe. But there's also some other aspects of control that probably need to happen too. So if things get a little out of hand, with bigger creatures on the board, something like Dusk can really happen. It's a sorcery for 2 white and says destroy all creatures with power 3 or greater. And then, again, Mangara's got power 2, so it's going to survive. Dawn is the aftermath side of that. It's a sorcery that costs 3 white. It says return all creature cards with converted mana or with power 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand. So again, if you've got a lot of small creatures in stack, you can get them back. Solar Tide's another kind of way to do this as well, or at least the first part. It's a sorcery for 4 white. It says choose one. Destroy all creatures with power 2 or less, or destroy all creatures with power 3 or greater. Obviously, we're going to be picking that 3 or greater the vast majority of the time, and we can entwine it by sacrificing 2 lands. So again, just ways to control the board and kind of have things go the direction that we want them to go. We, obviously want to keep creatures on the board and incentivize attacks elsewhere, but if at a certain point things get a little out of control and we can't incentivize those attacks elsewhere, we might need to wipe the board, or at least wipe the board of big creatures. When it comes to winning, there are obviously multiple ways we can do it. One in white that can be very effective is Approach the Second Sun. Say sorcery for 6 and a white. If it was cast from your hand and you've cast another spell named Approach the Second Sun this game, you win the game. Otherwise, put Approach the Second Sun into its owner's library, 7 from the top, and you gain 7 life. Basically, you just cast this twice and you win. The kind of funny thing about Mangara having this in the deck is you cast this, and then you're putting a target on your back, but if players are trying to attack you and kind of take you out of the game, they're actually helping you get to that Approach the Second Sun faster, because again, if they swing at you with 2 creatures, you're drawing a card. You get closer and closer to that Approach the Second Sun. If they're casting multiple spells, you're drawing a card. So there's just ways to kind of help. Mangara helps you dig deeper to get back to that approach to help you win. Obviously, in mono white, you've got a lot of lifelink synergies and ways to gain life. So a Feldar Sovereign could help you win if you're kind of teleporting up. Feldar Sovereign's a 4/6 cat beast with vigilance lifelink that costs 4 white. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, if you've got 40 or more life, you win the game. In a mono white deck that has, if you focus kind of on gaining life or lifelink, that's pretty easy to get to. Again, you need to find a way to protect this, but you can do that in a multitude of ways. Psychosis Crawler would actually be a pretty funny way to take opponents out in a mono white deck. It's a Star Horror, or XX Horror, that costs 5. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in your hand, and whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life. So yeah, drawing a card and making players lose life is just not something that you'd ever think you'd see in mono white, but this could be a way to take players out. It could be pretty funny. And actually, it could be a pretty big creature out on the board for you, because its power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in your hand, and you're going to be drawing a ton of cards. So yeah, during your opponent's turns, this might get up to, an 8/8, a 9/9, a 10/10. And finally, kind of a win condition that, you might just use, if you're able to survive long enough, if you're able to ramp enough, which you should be able to with a Pelifort kind of style group hug deck. A Storm Herd could help you win, basically. It's a sorcery that costs 8 white. It says create X 1/1 white Pegasus creature tokens with flying, where X is your life total. So again, if you're at 30 life or so, it's going to be tough for your opponents if they don't have a Wrath or some way to stop this, to kind of deal with 30 Pegasus on the board. Kind of just, you're basically utilizing your life total as a resource for damage over multiple turns, essentially, to take your opponents out. When it comes to most of the cards I mentioned on this list were very budget friendly. When it comes to some out-of-budget options to potentially consider, Darksteel Plate is one that comes to mind. It's an equipment that costs 3. It's indestructible. Equip creature is indestructible. Has equip 2. So again, protecting Mangara is huge for this deck, and this is a great way to do it. Again, if Mangara is dealt with, you can just re-equip next time you get him to play. Fell the Mighty is another good flexible board wipe. It says destroy all creatures with power greater than target creature's power. And again, a flexible board wipe with this, if you've got Mangara, if Mangaras get indestructible, then you can maybe target a token that's only got 1 power, and then you take out, things, that are 2 or greater, essentially, as well. So that's another way to do it. Lightning Greaves, of course, is a great way to protect Mangara as well. Equip creature has Haste and Shroud, equipment for 2, and it has 0 to equip. So basically, again, any way that you can use to protect Mangara is going to be good for, anyway, it's going to be good for this deck, because Mangara, again, is your draw engine, your value engine. The deck is going to revolve around Mangara. Again, I'm really excited that mono white finally has a legitimate card draw source. Again, and I think Mangara can be great in the 99. I do think that it can be a great mono white commander. Not sure if it's actually going to kind of unseat Shram as the #1 mono white commander. Only time will tell. I think it might. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are. What do you think about the direction for this kind of hypothetical deck around this newly spoiled commander? And yeah, what are your thoughts about Mangara in general? So yeah, let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks again and have a good one. And make sure you're following us on social media for more updates and sneak peeks on future episodes. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons who help make this show possible. I truly couldn't do any of this without your support. If you want to support this channel directly, consider becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, including being able to vote on future commanders for deck techs. There are even tiers where you get your own personalized deck tech dedicated to you. You can check out all the Patreon tiers and rewards at patreon.com/commandersquarters. If you haven't already, make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. Here at the Commander's Quarters, we're all about budget commander. So while you're at it, go ahead and check out some of our other types of episodes. And with that, I'm out of here. Thanks again and have a good one.